When most people imagine a rainforest, they picture towering trees rising from the forest floor. They imagine roots digging into soil, vines climbing upward, and sunlight filtering through layers of leaves overhead. What many people do not realize is that a significant portion of the rainforest ecosystem exists above the ground. High in the canopy, perched on branches and clinging to trunks, entire communities of plants have evolved remarkable solutions to one of nature's most challenging problems. How do you reach sunlight without becoming a tree? The answer gave rise to some of the most fascinating plants on Earth: tank bromeliads, Hoyas, orchids, and staghorn ferns. Although these plants often live side by side, they represent very different evolutionary strategies for life in the canopy. The first thing to understand is that most of these plants are not parasites. A parasite taps directly into another organism and steals resources. Epiphytes do something very different. They use trees for support while obtaining their own water and nutrients from rain, dust, decaying organic matter, and the surrounding environment. A useful way to think about it is this: parasites borrow resources. Epiphytes borrow real estate. The host tree functions more like a living apartment building than a food source. For many years, scientists described this relationship as largely one-sided. The epiphyte benefited, while the tree was thought to be mostly unaffected. Today, researchers increasingly suspect the story may be more complicated. Although epiphytes do not feed on the tree, their success depends heavily on the tree remaining alive. A healthy tree maintains its position in the canopy, continues reaching toward sunlight, and provides the stable structure these plants need. If the tree falls, many epiphytes lose access to the conditions that allowed them to thrive. In this sense, the interests of the tree and its epiphytes are often aligned. The plants are not protecting the tree, but their futures are closely linked. Over time, the relationship becomes even more complex. A mature rainforest tree may support mosses, lichens, orchids, bromeliads, Hoyas, staghorn ferns, insects, frogs, reptiles, birds, and countless microorganisms. What begins as a single tree gradually becomes an ecosystem. Ecologists increasingly describe these giants as vertical communities, living platforms supporting entire networks of life. Among the most remarkable of these canopy residents are the tank bromeliads. At first glance, a bromeliad appears to be little more than a rosette of leaves. Look closer, however, and those leaves form a cup capable of holding rainwater. Over time, leaves fall into the reservoir. Insects become trapped. Animal waste accumulates. Microorganisms begin breaking down organic material. What forms is not merely a plant. It is a pond suspended in a tree. Some bromeliads become home to beetles, spiders, mosquito larvae, crustaceans, salamanders, and frogs. Certain frog species spend much of their lives inside bromeliads and lay their eggs within these miniature pools. To these animals, the bromeliad is not simply vegetation, it is habitat. At the same time, the plant benefits from the ecosystem it creates. As organic matter decomposes, nutrients become available to the bromeliad itself. The plant effectively engineers a tiny aquatic world that helps sustain it. Its solution to life in the canopy is simple: create a pond. Hoyas took a different path. Native primarily to Southeast Asia and the Pacific region, Hoyas are often described as colonizing plants. This does not mean they aggressively invade ecosystems. Rather, they excel at finding opportunity. A seed lands in a patch of moss or organic debris on a branch. Roots establish themselves. Vines begin exploring. Over years, and sometimes decades, the plant gradually expands into the available canopy. Hoyas are the scouts of the canopy. Unlike bromeliads, they do not typically create miniature ecosystems. Their success comes from persistence. They store water within thick leaves and stems, tolerate irregular rainfall, and slowly extend themselves through the branches. Their strategy can be summarized in a few simple words: find a foothold, expand slowly, persist. Orchids represent yet another solution. The orchid family is among the largest and most diverse plant families on Earth. Many tropical species spend their entire lives attached to trees. Unlike Hoyas, which store much of their water in leaves and stems, orchids often rely on specialized roots covered in a sponge-like tissue called velamen. These roots rapidly absorb water from rain and humidity while helping protect the plant during dry periods. Many orchids also develop intricate relationships with pollinators and occupy very specific ecological niches. Some depend upon particular insects, others depend upon unique microclimates within the canopy. Their success comes from specialization. The orchid's answer to life in the canopy is straightforward. Become exceptionally good at a particular way of living. Then there are the staghorn ferns. Among all these plants, they may be the most unusual. Unlike bromeliads, Hoyas, and orchids, staghorn ferns belong to one of Earth's oldest surviving plant lineages. Their ancestors trace back hundreds of millions of years to a world long before flowers dominated the landscape. Yet despite their ancient heritage, they evolved a sophisticated canopy lifestyle of their own. Staghorn ferns produce two very different types of fronds. The antler fronds gather sunlight and produce spores. The shield fronds grow flat against the host and perform a completely different function. They trap leaves, they collect dust, they retain moisture. Over time, they accumulate organic debris and create a compost basket suspended in the canopy. As this material decomposes, nutrients become available to the fern. Where a bromeliad builds a pond, the staghorn fern builds soil. Its strategy is perhaps the most elegant of all. Build a garden in the sky. Despite their differences, all four groups reveal a deeper pattern. Each depends on stability. Bromeliads require time for their aquatic communities to develop. Hoyas need years to expand across branches. Orchids often depend on stable microclimates and reliable pollinators. Staghorn ferns need decades to accumulate organic matter and build nutrient reserves. None are adapted for constant disturbance. All flourish in systems that persist through time. Together, they reveal one of the most fascinating features of rainforest ecology. Ecosystems exist within ecosystems. The rainforest contains trees. The trees support epiphytes. The bromeliads support aquatic communities. The staghorn ferns support decomposers. The orchids support specialized pollinators. The Hoyas provide habitat for insects and other canopy life. And many of those organisms support still more species. What appears to be a single forest becomes a hierarchy of interconnected worlds. In the end, these plants remind us that evolution does not always solve problems through size, strength, or dominance. Sometimes success comes from finding an opportunity others overlooked. How do you reach sunlight without becoming a tree? These plants arrived at four very different answers. The bromeliad collects water. The Hoya explores. The orchid specializes. The staghorn fern builds soil. Their solutions transformed the rainforest canopy into one of the most complex and beautiful ecosystems on Earth. And high above the forest floor, hidden among branches and leaves, entire worlds continue to thrive because of it.